Hey everybody, Brian Von Villiers here. I have to just say, I'm already in love with this set of stories just because of the title, which is, have you ever made a D&D character solely to mess with the DM? I've done it, but it wasn't intentional. At least not while I was creating him. Dross was a lizard folk rogue who was forced out of his sewer home by the sewer gator hunting guards and adventurers. He bought his passage on to a cargo ship destined for a faraway coast, and that is where the adventure began. We had been at sea for nearly a week, passing time with the duties of sailing, meal prep, studying our spells, or gambling with some of the crew. Dross chose to do this last one. Through a couple lucky dice throws on my part, Dross comes up with the equivalent of a 20 in blackjack. Almost unbeatable. One of Dross's opponents, a halfling, started to frustratedly push her share of the pot towards him. The other opponent, a dwarf, stopped her and slowly flipped his cards. He managed to beat Dross, which would have garnered him a pot of 20 gold. It would have, if not for the fact that Dross, on my lucky roll yet again, noted that the dwarf's starting card had been swapped. Where there was once a 9, there was now a 13. Dross caught him out on his cheating, and the dwarf stood up in a huff and left the table, and the pot. Later that night, Dross was poking around in the hold, seeing what was being shipped to wherever they were going. The dwarf and the halfling from the card game earlier in the day cornered him, threatening Dross for the 20 gold pot. With some quick thinking, Dross threw and lit a torch/lantern, I can't remember which it was fire, and gave the two crew members an ultimatum. Either they go off without the pot they forfeited and be glad that they were only losing the pot, or Dross lights the casks of gunpowder in the hold and the ship gets blown to smithereens. Oh, not surprisingly, they know we're far out to sea at this point and they call the bluff. Well, unfortunately for them, Dross wasn't bluffing, and clearly Dross wasn't having any of that. As they try to grab him, Dross tosses the torch lantern into the corner by the barrels. Instantaneously, both the dwarf and the halfling are torn to shreds, and the ship is blown to pieces. Awakened by the blast and by shouts of, "We're taking on water!" the remainder of the hired crew, as well as the other party members, see/feel the water rising and stumble to the lifeboats. A high dexterity save kept Dross from facing the brunt of the explosion, and with another save, Dross was able to navigate to the ocean surface without being dragged to a watery grave on the bottom of the sea. He was eventually spotted and picked up by one of the lifeboats. And now the ruined sailors and adventurers drifted for a week until reaching the sandy shore to which they were traveling. I need to hear more about Dross. Yes, I have. His name was Sir Meowsley, and he was very, very dumb. We were playing a short transitional campaign in between switching DMs as our regular DM wanted to play, and one of our players nearly had a campaign finished that she wanted to run us through, with her as the dungeon master. Dun dun dun! This was only ever intended to be a 6 to 8 session long campaign, and like all short campaigns I've ever played in, it was seen by the players as an opportunity to play those stupid, cliched, or just downright lunatic characters that we had dreamed up but could never play in a legitimate long-term campaign. Our party was comprised of Gerald Rivia, the gruff monster-hunting playboy whose only real friend was his horse. Oh no. Bernie Sanders, the elderly politician who also happened to be a pyromaniac wizard. Mike Bison, a beast-hide shifter pugilist, were-buffalo, with a lisp and a temper. Hey guys, I'm just going to transform into a buffalo, you're going to get your ass kicked. The aforementioned Sir Meowsley, a house cat that had Awakened Mind cast on it, and had become a rapier-wielding menace to banditry everywhere. He was Puss in Boots from Shrek, essentially, except he was only able to speak cat, and therefore just meowed meaningfully whenever he wanted something. And Bench. Bench was my favorite stupid character from the entire campaign, I think. She was a bench, not a sentient or awakened bench, just an actual piece of furniture. The party carried her around, and occasionally she'd level up alongside us, gaining no powers or skills. I'm genuinely in awe of the player for keeping that up for 5 whole sessions campaign. I would not have had the will. Our DM allowed all of this, so I feel like it's mostly her own fault if she got annoyed by it. I want to know more about Bench. Not D&D, but a TTRPG anyway. The system we were playing at the time was in the Marvel Universe RPG system. That'd be the one that uses the stones rather than dice for conflict resolution. We'd played around in it before and had been joking about some of the tropes of comics. Well, I wasn't too familiar with comic books, so mostly just listening in. The GM said he wanted to run a Bronze Age style of campaign with a handful of sessions, think roughly 1980s era comics. Now I'll admit I knew he was talking about something like The Punisher, but he'd been a thorn in my side through the last campaign, run by someone else. And frankly, frankly, when the idea popped into my head, I was too taken with it to let it go. The idea? Pizza Boy. Oh no. Bitten by a radioactive pizza, he gained all the powers of a pizza. In this case, that meant regeneration, Wolverine style, combined with telepathy. Can't read minds, project feelings on others, uncontrolled. And the disadvantage of being made of pizza. So basically, he could feed any number of people, but was able to feel what happened to the pieces of himself even after they were removed, and automatically projected that sensation to anyone around him. So if he were to feed an army, that army would experience the process of being eaten and digested right along with him. That's disturbing. He didn't want to admit that I'd gotten to him, and it was only a few sessions anyway, so he let me play the character. I played him as a somewhat self-sacrificing, going to soup kitchens and the like to feed the people there in his off time. And when it came to the actual plot, I took it seriously. When we needed to enter the enemy base, I loaded up a few pizza boxes with bits of me and had someone else deliver the boxes. I'd have everyone bounce back out of range and just stand on the other side of the door, putting the guards in range of my telepathy, then wait for any of them to start chowing down. Once the first bite was swallowed, there was no backing out. And in short order, every guard would be on the floor and pay with the sensation of being digested. God, that sounds horrible. Once they were incapacitated, everyone else would make their way in. Ended up being one of the more enjoyable mini campaigns with that group. Well, for me anyway. It's pizza time. Mine is named Jack of Alt Ray. He's a 20th level character for low level campaigns. Why? Because he has 1 to 3 levels in everything, depending on how I want to play him in a particular game. With his singular level and classes, he's pretty useless but funny to have around. When he's rocking 9 subclasses, he's rather interesting to play, and can be a surprisingly annoying support character for a DM to deal with. Someone's been watching Puffin Forest, I see. Absurd much? Sort of, yes? Caveat. A couple of the answers say that you should never do this, and it's disrespectful to the DM in that there should never be a DM versus player dynamic, and you should play the character you want to play. Oh, I agree wholeheartedly with this. I've never done anything like this before and will never do so again. But there were reasons at the time. We were playing Curse of Strahd, so I created Heinrich, a discredited academic who had turned to necromancy after the death of his wife from a mysterious plague. He was heavily inspired by Viktor Frankenstein and Ivan Karamazov, and I thought he would be the perfect thing for the setting. We played the first few sessions getting stomped in every fight. I think we were about 6 session ins before we engaged a foe we didn't have to run from. It became increasingly apparent that our DM was an avid min-maxer as a player and extremely competitive Warhammer 40k nut, was playing DMs versus players. So I was further informed by another player that the DM had confided in him over a pint that he would especially like to kill my character over all the times I beat him at 40k, etc. And then Heinrich got kicked out of the party. Turns out the paladin had a major problem with the whole undead minions thing. Go figure. The whole party backed her up and threatened to kill Heinrich if he didn't swear to never raise the undead again. He pointed out that his job was what he euphemistically referred to as post-mortem communications. Credit to Terry Pratchett for that one, and they informed him he was out in his ear. The DM invited me to roll up a new character, and that's how I created Skalric. Skalric was the most ridiculously powerful min-maxed character I've ever seen played at a table. He was completely useless out of combat, but that was okay, as the DM liked to fast-forward any scene that was in combat anyway. He used Broken Unearthed Arcana because the DM had specifically allowed it. In all fairness, I knew what I was doing and submitted the character build, including what I was going to do at subsequent levels, to the DM for approval, and he allowed it. But maybe he just didn't realize what was in front of him. In any event, for the rest of the campaign, we basically rinsed and repeated a tactic whereby everyone would hide behind Skalric and counterattack where possible. All other energy would be spent buffing Skalric. If flying enemies were present, the rest of the party concentrated on bringing them down because the floor is Skalric. Like the floor is lava, but more deadly. The DM cranked up the encounters, of course. We took to calculating how many times greater than a deadly encounter it would have been by the DMG, and how much XP we would have got if we hadn't been playing Milestone. I think the best we got up to was about 15 times deadly, which should have put us all about 2.5 levels for one encounter. All in all, was not a fun game and probably wasn't good for our group. We've got a much better game going on now, new DM, and Skalric has an honored place as an NPC barbarian king, because what else does a retired barbarian hero do other than make himself king by his own hand and wear a crown upon a troubled brow? Ooh, nice Conan reference there. Sort of. It wasn't D&D, it was Champions, a superhero game. Never heard of it. The GM was being super strict about keeping the powers limited, and I was having trouble coming up with a character concept that would fit within his limits. And finally, a bit frustrated, I said, "Why even bother with powers? A normal guy with stuff you can buy in real life would fit this." So that's what I did. I made a superhero who was a regular guy with no powers and equipped with only real type stuff a normal person could buy. A motorcycle, a rifle, a bulletproof vest, etc. Oh, it worked, and he turned out to be a lot of fun to play, trying to keep up without anything special about him at all. Hey everybody, Brian Von Villa here, checking in after the vid. Make sure to leave a like, subscribe, ring that bell, and of course, leave a comment down below letting us know how you messed with your DM using a brand new character or just a character that you designed solely for the reason of messing with them. All the love, and we will see you next time. Bye for now.